I've always thought that Bingley was one of the best places from where to start a walk in West Yorkshire. So when I discovered this walk, the Path of the Druid, started in my hometown, I was well pleased. Described as a charity challenge walk, I downloaded it for free from Facebook. It comes as a pack which contains route descriptions, maps, and all sorts of useful information. And it includes two of my favourite places, the St Ives Estate and Ogden Water. The path is about 12.5 miles of delightful and varied Yorkshire countryside, with occasional points of interest dotted along the route. The first section led us out of town via Altar Lane, which, being a good mile uphill, cleared the lungs and certainly got the heart pumping. Eventually we met a gate across our way. Before going on, we turned right and followed a path through a gap in the trees which led us to the first of our Druids altars. The altar probably dates back to the times of the Brigantes, the local tribe who, way back when, occupied this part of the world. Standing here with uninterrupted views up and down the Aire Valley, you can well understand why a Druid would find this place so desirable. After enjoying the views from the altar, we backtracked along the path to the gate on Altar Lane and continued on, following the wall around the St Ives Estate. At the top of the lane, we met the main road, which wasn't busy but is known to be a bit of a rat run at peak times. The walk description advises keeping to the grassy verge, which has a path line forming along it, then nipping to the other side through the entrance to Harden Moor. I'm sure the last time I was here the moor was more open. It's now well on its way to becoming a woodland. Following the maps and descriptions makes it hard to get lost on this walk. Simply follow the paths until you meet and go through a metal gate. A short distance leads us up to a rocky outcrop. I've no idea if it has a proper name. Perhaps it should. The path then becomes more defined again and starts to lead us downhill, with signs along the way indicating others have been here before. The Harden Moor stone circle isn't a henge, but it is believed to be a Bronze Age ring cairn. It was excavated many years ago, and several urns were found within the circle. Around 10 burials were dotted about it. There is meant to be another stone with cup and ring carvings, but after much searching we were unable to find it. Following the path along, we got to a wall and turned right, looking for a track to run downhill and towards the hamlet of Rycroft. It was a little understated, but we found it. We somehow knew we were on the right track. The small village or hamlet, nay, collection of houses of Rycroft, derives its name from a field or place where malting took place, and indeed one of the buildings in the settlement used to be referred to as the Malt House. Though the oldest building in the hamlet only goes back to the 17th century, the village has been known since the 14th. As you pop out of the village, an obvious path across the road took us through several fields before a left turn with a gate led us down Dolphin Lane and out onto the road below. I wonder why it's called that. Turning right, we followed the pavement in the direction of Cullingworth, looking out for the stile across the road that would ultimately lead us down to Goitstock. The path is obvious. It led us down through green fields and shady trees before coming across a chimney, which is the only remains of Goitstock Mill. The mill itself was burnt down in the 1920s. Only the chimney remains, as it was separated from the mill to allow smoke to disperse and go out of the valley. The mill was once used as a ballroom. Path turns right and down to the holiday village below. With envy we wandered down the paths and onto the site. The owners have placed an information board describing the valley's history next to the path. The scenic path leads over a delightful footbridge before veering to the right and up the valley. Soon the pleasant sound of the river becomes louder and louder, and the sight of Goitstock waterfalls appears before us. We stopped for a while to allow our Druid to dangle his feet into the water. The falls were created by water flowing from glaciers at the end of the last ice age. Places like these were often regarded as special or even sacred, and sat here in front of such a spectacle, I certainly understand why. The next bit of path up and around the falls I think could be tricky for some. A number of metal steps have been provided and a handrail, but the rocky terrain and tree roots need care. I was glad I had my stick for support. The path wanders up the valley, roughly following the stream, but nipping occasionally onto quiet lanes that led us away from private homes and converted mills, before emerging once more at a roadside, this time with lots of speeding cars. Spotting a gap in the traffic, we nipped across the road and followed a path through trees, which then opened up into meadows. The guide points out that this is one of the wettest parts of the country, but it was pleasant in the moments of autumn sunshine. We worked our way up the valley, hardly realising we were climbing uphill. We passed reservoirs, farms, and yet more homesteads before eventually, just short of the village of Denholme, coming out onto a lane and down to cross Doe Park Reservoir. We went over the embankment, with views both down the valley and over the water, and walked around the lake to where Denholme Beck poured into the reservoir. Crossing a small footbridge, a left turn led us up a very pretty valley, first following the stream and then negotiating some well-placed stepping stones to get to a path on the other side. I don't know how that would be done if the stream was in full flood, but it was okay today. Both the stream and our path passed under the now disused Great Northern Railway and the Queensbury to Keighley line. It then headed up through a small gate and a path, the Denholme Gate Road. This was once the entrance to a deer park. Crossing the road, we made our way up the quieter Crag Lane to Keighley Road above. We crossed over by the old farm shop and followed the pavement on until Black Edge Lane allowed our escape from the traffic and on to Thornton Moor. This long and almost straight track took us over the moor until we were climbing once more and heading towards the wind farm and our ultimate goal, the Druids Altar Stones of Ogden Kirk. I remember being taken up to these stones as a child and told lots of stories by my father, all about druids, witches and the like. All made up, of course, but beside the tales of druidry, the stones do have a long history of events. It's hard to imagine, but this was once a kind of outdoors Las Vegas where small fortunes were made with a game called pitch and toss. Strangely, coins are to be found all over these rocks, probably placed along with the many painted pebble love tokens around the altar. It is said that lovers who kiss at the altar stay together forever. The altar projects a kind of mystic atmosphere, as can be seen in my photographs. Mind you, having our own wandering druid did help. Having had our fill and dying for a cuppa, we made our way down the long track to Ogden Water and our lift back. We had a great time and fortunately the weather stayed dry the whole day. Oh, I nearly forgot. Our Druid has asked me to say that he hopes you have enjoyed our little film.